Happy Friday, Miami. This is Buy, Sell, Hold, a Miami real estate podcast. We're going to spend the next hour talking about what's going on in the real estate market in the South Florida area. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. I'm going to pass the baton over to the moderator of our show, Daniel Hernandez. He is a real estate professional over at Compass Real Estate. His office is based in Coconut Grove. He does single family houses as well as condos. Happy Friday there, Daniel.
What is happening, Peter? Can you hear me okay? Because we just went live on LinkedIn and I don't really know where we are on the internet. We are on YouTube, we are on Substack. Hi, Peter. Well, for everybody else, my name is Daniel Hernandez. This is October the 17th, episode number 22 of Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. What are we? We are a South Florida real estate talk show. What does that mean with a South Florida real estate talk show? So every week, Peter and I, we send stories back and forth. It's kind of like a group chat, but it's just two guys. And we send stories about developments. We send stories about community news. We send stories about, well, anything that really has to do with real estate and some things that don't. And on Fridays, we create what's called a rundown. And so on this show, you got us for an hour and we discuss these things back and forth and back and forth. And at the end of each topic, we either buy it, we like it, we sell it, that's bullshit, or we hold it because we don't know. And if you stuck with us from last week we brought on our first guest, and it was great. David was great, huh, Peter? It was fun, bringing in a
Fantastic
nice
time.
an extra viewpoint. Well, Peter, from his vast network of, well, he has the vastest real estate network. He's been here for like 100 years. He brought on an owner broker from a realty out in Hallandale called Radiant, and that's a play on her name, Julia Ray. She is a Ukrainian owner broker, and she's going to give us some even deeper insights. To think we could go even deeper from what Peter's condo insights are. She's on the ground in Hallandale, in Sunny Isles, dealing with Canadians, dealing with Eastern Europeans, dealing with some Latinos who don't like Miami that much, and some domestics who she's renting, selling, pre-construction, resale. We're going to have her join us right now. What's going on, Julia?
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. Love the
Oh, thank you
music,
so much for
Peter. It's
joining.
phenomenal.
That everybody loves the music. You're gonna tell her now?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to tell you, a buddy of mine who's a tech guy. He set up an AI music company, and he's one of these guys that you imagine when you imagine technology guys. So he set up this music company, and I said, "Hey, can you make me a theme song for the podcast?" He did. He asked that I go ahead and put the logo at the beginning. So if anybody is interested in having their own music created, there's no copyright issues. It's called buildreach.com. The guy's name is John Mora. So reach out to him and maybe he can help you out.
Hey,
Amazing, amazing.
well, we got an action-packed hour. Actually, and how inconsiderate of me, Julia. Can you introduce yourself to the rest of the world here? We got a bunch of loyal viewers watching, and they're on LinkedIn today.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a real pleasure, and I've known Peter for many, many years. How many, Peter? It was probably from my first days in real estate, right? So I started in the property management and real estate in 2008, more or less, at the end of 2008, as a property manager. And very quickly, I kind of oriented myself. I, wanted to know more about all those realtors that were bringing me contracts, and I didn't know much about it. So I just expanded my education into real estate. In 2011, I became a licensed realtor, and in 2013, I opened up my own brokerage. I own a small brokerage, very boutique, only 5 agents in the in Hallandale, and we service mainly condos. I specialize in condos because that's my background. I used to manage a condo, and I privately manage a few condos until this day. So that's pretty much my background. Majority of our work is done in condo in Fort Lauderdale, Hallandale, Hollywood, Sunny Isles, Aventura.
All right, amazing. Well, thank you again for taking the time on this Friday afternoon to come hang out with Peter and I. We
Okay.
promise we won't get too crazy on you. But with that, let's jump into it. Peter, biggest news, or I'd argue, biggest news of the week is and you gotta say my rundown title is at least a little punny, right?
I'd say it
Schvoed,
is.
Schvoed out of the Raleigh, shoved out of the Raleigh. So Michael Schvo, and we were talking about how to pronounce his name, and so from here on out, we're just going to say Schvo, whether it's right or wrong. Julia, you can be the tiebreaker here. Is it right or wrong?
Schvo? I think so.
Michael Schvo.
Schvo?
Well, Schvo. Michael Schvo. So the Raleigh, everybody, I'm going to bring it up on Google Maps so everybody can see. Julia, you let us know if you can see that map. You see the map, right?
Yep, I see the map. Yep.
All right. Everybody loves the maps here. So the Raleigh is a property over here on Collins, and what is that, like 18th ish, right?
Yeah, like
So you can
17.
you can
Hmm.
yeah, you can see it by that iconic Raleigh pool. And the Raleigh's been there for 80 years, 85 years, I think 1940 I saw on Wikipedia. And the Raleigh is actually
Hmm.
just that northernmost parcel, right? And in 2014, it was actually bought by the fashion designer Tommy Hilfiger. So in 2019, Tommy Hilfiger owned it. He bought it for $67.5 million, which is a lot of money. It's nothing. It's not nothing, right? Schvo and his partners paid $103 million for that parcel. It's a 60,000 square foot parcel. It's twice as big as the two parcels just south of it. And this is where it gets interesting because the two parcels just south of it are both 30,000 square feet. But those were bought for $52 and then $64 million respectively, despite them both being raised, totally knocked down, because the goal here is to create this 3-acre assemblage, which is where Schvo wanted to build a visualized this Rosewood branded condo hotel. But now, as of today or yesterday, I don't know when it hit the news, Peter, Schvo's out, and a private equity group out of New York is in. Schvo wound up spending, the public records say the sum of the amount was like $219 million, but a press release released by Schvo and his associates from 2022 said $243 million. So I don't really know where you get that $20-ish million gap, but that was in 2019. Remember, pre-pandemic, pre-Miami craziness of appreciation. It
Yep.
transacted this week for $270 million. He took a bath, and not like bathhouse, but we can talk about the bathhouse. And I'm not saying that just because you're Eastern European, Julia, although I love going there. But this is another instance, Peter, of you'll say an out of towner coming in here thinking he's gonna do what he's gonna do and effectively not get run out of town, but definitely run off the beach. I don't think he has any more assets on the beach because he sold his other portfolio last month to try to keep this one alive, and he wound up having to get out of both of them.
This is there's a former journalist who now does investor relations. Guy's name is Jean Gruss. I had him on my podcast last week, and he always says this is the story of Florida. This is exactly what happens. People always come down, they fall in love with the weather, they fall in love with the concept that we're the gateway to Latin America, they fall in love with the concept that there's 1,000 people a day moving to Florida. They've been talking about this forever and ever and ever, going all the way back, I would argue, even to 1920s Florida land boom. They come down here, they get all bulled up, they're all excited, they're all juiced up, they go in there, they think the numbers are going to be great, they think the market only goes up and the trees grow to the moon. And what ultimately happens? Well, every time we get a shakeout, then you will see the smart, prudent money sitting on the sidelines. They'll then step up, they'll take down the property, they'll reposition it, and they'll be the ones who benefit from it. This is a repetitive cycle that you see over and over and over. And, I point to Ken Griffin. Ken Griffin, I like to bring him up every week. Ken Griffin's the guy who runs Citadel.
Every
Ken
week.
Griffin has spent a bundle on real estate, and he's a perfect example. He's got the wherewithal to ride it out. He bought some units. His first acquisition down here was over at the Faina House. He went in there, burning cash. And Faina House, the location is up in the 40s on Collins Avenue. This property's in the 17s. But this
Mhm.
always, always, always happens. So anybody who's been around for a little bit of time, they're not surprised by this whatsoever. Now the question is, will this developer, will future developers, did they live to fight another day? I always say they got to do 3 projects. Once they do 3 projects, they've gotten beat up. They got so many battle scars, and at that point, when they're going forward after that, now they're legit. They got street cred. Up until they've done 3 projects, I still sort of think that they're novices. Think about going through high school. So once you're at the point where you're going to get in your senior year and you're going to graduate, then you're legit. Everything before that, chances are you're still kind of learning the rules of engagement in South Florida real estate.
Well, I mean, technically, is this considered 3 projects because it was a 3 parcel assembly?
This is talking about supersizing. He didn't go with the value meal small. He went all the way large.
Well, and I don't know anything about valuating hotels. Do either of you? But when I was looking into the history of it, I just thought it was strange. Or maybe he assembled the Raleigh and the southernmost parcel first, and the guy in the middle in the sandwich said, you know what? If you want it, you're going to have to shell out the extra 10 or 15 million because otherwise you don't really have a project. But why did, of the 2 identical parcels, and they look like they have pretty much identical frontage, beach frontage, one went for 52 and one went for 64.
I,
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough with this particular property. I tend to stay away from that area because what these are is these are old hotels. These are the Art Deco hotels. These are the ones that became very popular with the training with World War II, stuff like that. When you had all of the GIs that were down here, they were training before they went off to war. After they war was over, many of them came back here. They started buying Key Biscayne, places like Bell Harbor. They all Hollywood Hallandale. They all benefited from sort of just, or I should say the area benefited from the fact that these people got acclimated with the area. They decided they were going to set up shop. But anytime you go into hotel development, you go there because of the sand. The reality is, can you actually reposition that space into something that would be marketable and interesting? I would say just up the street, you got the Carillon. Carillon was turned into a Canyon Ranch for a moment, and that thing ended up going sideways as well. So it's always challenging my perspective when you take an older structure, you try to reposition it, and you try to turn it into a condo. It might be great if the tourism market is out of control and if pre-construction prices are flying. But once you see any kind of pullback, then you feel the real pressure of what it is to be in a volatile market like South Florida.
Yeah, I again, not my space. I mean, hotel valuations seem
Mm.
as complicated as like corporate financing for an airline.
Well, we'll take it in the other direction. Take it in the other direction. Let's say the $270 million. Let's say you're going to earmark 10% or 20% for
10%.
land cost. Okay,
Got
so
it.
we'll say 20% for land cost. So you figure $90 million an acre or so. So that would be your land cost. A project like this, and you might have paid 20% for the land cost. Then you would simply add what's construction. What do I need to sell it at? It's one thing when the market is heading up, like we were when we came right out of the pandemic, right? When, where in Florida, you didn't have to wear a mask. So people descended on here. And Miami Beach in particular, which is where this property is located, they allowed you to get on police cars and twerk. We saw that all over the world. It was on the BBC. It was everywhere. So everybody came into town. And then what happened? Now we're going back to some normalcy. I said during the pandemic, I feel like, what we're looking at is a python in the Florida Everglades. When that python grabs that alligator and starts sucking it down and trying to digest it, you got that big lump as it works its way through the system. That's what I would argue we went through during the pandemic. And now we're at the tail end where, the market, all of the appreciation is simply being digested, would be my argument.
Oh, I got a question for Julia because I feel like she's being shy on us. So
Julia, no. Julia is not shy.
so
Julie is not shy. Yeah.
Julia's not shy. All right. So Julia, we're looking at South Beach. Julia's all the way up in Hollandale, past Bal Harbor, past all of that, and there's not as many hotels up there. It's more condo and apartment buildings, correct?
Right.
So
Right. Exactly.
what are we seeing up in that area? We're seeing more terminations and redevelopments rather than just hotel demolition into condo project, right?
Right. Right. We see mostly resales, and there's still several land parcels that we see some land, some major condo luxury developments between Oasis, the Shell Bay, the Icon Beach. There are some terminations in the talk right now, but I have not seen any completed terminations in Hollandale. There's just one undergoing right now in conversations, but not, I don't think it has been completed in the Golden View, right? Um,
So
but there are a lot of the areas completely changing in terms of but to Peter's point, I think what I have witnessed is a lot of people that purchased condos and temporarily sort of relocated here thinking it was going to be their permanent home, couldn't make it, couldn't make the living, couldn't make the same business that they were making up north, and ended up selling and going back, right? It's just a different dynamic. So we see that in the residential market happening, right? And what Peter's talking about is just, on the larger scale.
So, did I hear that right? There are still empty land parcels up in that area.
There, there are developments that are going up right now between the Oasis in Hollandale, the Shell Bay, the condo conversions. There are two condo conversions right now, and the Icon Beach, right? The Moon Residences in Hollywood. So there are some lots in Hollywood near the beach, right? So there's still land there. As far as is it going to be resellable and buildable because of the zoning restrictions? We have to see how that develops, right? But I think there's a lot of new development in both Hollandale and Hollywood near the beach that is happening currently.
So, okay, now here's the fun part: speculation hour. And we're
Nice.
not we're not we're not fan we're not
Peter was
conspiracy
waiting for that.
theorists. We're not conspiracy theorists on buy, sell, hold, but we do look I'm sorry, every rock. And God, does Peter have a lot of rocks in his garden? So, Peter, what what do you think happened here? Because Schvo's no schmuck, to alliterate. He's a big power broker, came down here from New York. He's familiar with the scene. He knows the commissioners. He knows what he's supposed to do. And by the way, like, this is I'm not going to say straight shooter development, but you got beachfront, you got redevelopment happening all around you. The Shelbourne just up the street redeveloped. The Ritz Plaza was redeveloped like 10 or 15 years ago. That became the SLS. I mean, there's a lot happening here. And then he partnered with a brand like Rosewood, which, the high-end hotel chain. Everybody knows them. They got rooms regularly going for $2,000-$3,000 a night. So what happened here, Peter? Or what do you think happened here?
I'm going through the article. It's a Bloomberg piece, and we'll put it in the show notes. But I'm going through the article, and I don't actually see any kind of response from the ownership as to why they sold. Now, if I were going to sit back and speculate, which I love to do, what I would speculate at is simply they went in, they missed the market, and a lot of times what you learn, especially if you're an experienced developer, maybe somewhere else, and you bring your skill set here, what you learn is a lot of times it's better to get out early and take a small little trim of the hair rather than getting your whole head shaved, kind of
But
like
he
me.
bought this in
And
2019, Peter.
well, but I'm saying in terms of the way the market's evolving, in terms of maybe what their projections are now, and also it might be access to cash. Can you actually get your hands on cash? Can you refinance it? Is there going to be an opportunity? Are you busy with something else? I mean, one of the cop outs you always hear in the public markets is whenever a CEO says, "Well, I'm going to go spend time with family." Whenever you hear that, they got pushed out. Here, I didn't see a quote, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to sort of speculate on that. But what I will tell you is supply is growing, sales are stagnant, and in some circumstances, prices are coming down. That's the perfect combination if you are a developer who's thinking about going forward. It's a perfect opportunity to sort of step back. And, why not cash out today and move along and live to fight another day rather than sort of pledging yourself to a project and ultimately going down with that project. I'm not going to say that project would have gone down or anything like that, but it's a certain mentality. I don't know enough about him. He's relatively newer to market, at least from my perspective. So I can't really say he has a tendency to do anything. But this to me seems like a numbers decision. We're running the numbers. These are our projections, and we're bailing. Now, there could be an asterisk that maybe there is something going on family-wise. Maybe there's something going on where he's spending time with his family. Maybe he wants to be doing something else. But don't forget the history of Miami Beach. The history of Miami Beach, and there's a great book called Bubbles and Sun. If you go through and read it, guy who pretty much put Miami Beach on the map is called Carl Fisher. Carl Fisher, when the market crapped out in the 1920s, he then tried to get go into selling houses in the Hamptons, just to give you an idea. So the smart people, they keep moving and they're following the trends. That's what a trader does. They figure out where the opportunity is and then they try to apply themselves. But I would say this is an example of somebody who's selling on Miami Beach because this is a marquee site.
I mean, it's amazing. Look at it. I mean, let me flip the camera up. Let me spin the camera around here. I mean, that's the beach. Bahamas is right there. I mean, I don't. How do you f that up? And I didn't want to curse in front of Julia. You have the Shelbourne that just I think that sold right after for about 120 million. They redeveloped that. It just reopened to this banging hotel that every influencer is trying to get a staycation comped at. And then as you continue going up the beach, they're renovating hotels left and right. It just like what kind of lender doesn't see the writing on the wall and say like, hey, like this guy, he could do it. And by the way, a private equity group came in. It's not like they're not doing anything to the site. Somebody just took it off his hands. Somebody took him out. Nala Capital out of New York. NAHLA. Never heard of them. I don't know if they've ever built anything down here. But this'll if this is their first, then they're in for a rough hat trick here, right, Peter?
Yeah, it should be interesting if they haven't been down here before. What I'm assuming is they'll probably try to reposition it, maybe they'll ride out, give some sort of clarity in the marketplace. I'd say right now the view is sort of, everything's up in the air. We don't know what's going on with the Liberation Day tariffs. I mean, new tariffs are just imposed on China, and then they were off. And then are we going to trade? Are we not going to trade? There's so much confusion. There's so much uncertainty. The Fed's supposed to make a decision about going forward about interest rates. They don't have data for the jobs numbers. And then this week they were supposed to release inflation numbers, and they don't have that either. And they got two responsibilities.
Well, apparently they're calling back employees to do the inflation report.
So what I'm saying is there's a lot of things up in the air, and if you got to burn, if you're sitting on dirt, there's still a cost.
Yeah, maybe we should be calling him Shvo the Oracle. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But if he is the Oracle, is he going the same way that Swire Properties did when they dumped most of their portfolio?
Listen,
on the mainland and Crescent Heights when they dump, which by the way, Crescent Heights is actively involved in and around that area. So watch Crescent Heights move. If they move on something like this, when they move, that's the time to go in. If they don't touch it, stay away.
Russell Galbert owned the Shelbourne.
Yes,
he's the guy who sold the Shelbourne. That was 5 years ago.
For disclosure, I think I did consulting on that project. It was one of those. So I don't know if I did or not, but just for disclosure.
Big fat asterisk by Peter's name because he does consulting.
Just in case. But if Russell chases it, it's ready to go. If he doesn't take a shot at it, then it's probably still too early. Anybody doesn't know, Crescent Heights is probably one of the biggest developers locally. They also do stuff over. I think they used to do it in California stuff, but they're like one of the biggest groups you kind of never heard of. Some of the projects they've been involved with include 5 Park right there at 5th in Alton, that brand new one that was put up with David Martin of Terra. So yeah, actively involved and real smart people.
So I'll go to Julia first. It's your first buy, sell, hold call, Julia. You ready? Buy, sell, hold. Vote out of the Raleigh.
Hold. I would say hold.
She's holding. Oh, very apprehensive. I still don't believe that you're not shocked, Julia, but you'll prove me wrong. Peter?
Yeah, no, I'd say a buy. I don't think if you're trying to establish a reputation down here to have this marquee site go by the wayside, I can't see how that's good for reputation in terms of living to build another project from my perspective. So I would be a buy on your headline that he got shoved out of town.
I think so too. I said the Oracle thing because I thought it sounded cool, but he very publicly tried to keep this alive. And the Father Time came knocking and his lender came knocking and Nala came in and they took him out.
And
You know,
just to add to that, that's what developers do though. They are gunslingers. These are the people who show up at high noon with the revolvers and they're ready to go. So if you are a developer, you are ready to go, and this just it's part for the course. It's like somebody who's a habitual investor or a startup. That's what they do. They just keep doing it over and over and over. So it doesn't mean a good thing or a bad thing. It's just it's part of the track record in the portfolio going
all
forward.
right. I too am buying it. Julia's a hold. Coming up next, this is an area we talk about, I wouldn't say often, but I actually used to live in Midtown. Full disclosure, everybody.
Really? Where did you live
Yes.
around?
I lived at 2 Midtown. So back in the
Okay.
day, for everybody watching from home, and I like playing with the map today. Maybe I'm just showing off to Julia. But these parcels here, just south of 36th Street. So this is 36th. The Julia Tuttle's here. We've oriented ourselves. Do you remember? And this is where the fancy chef guy is putting his branded tower. What is it called again? The Jean Georges Tower, or was going to be called the Jean Georges Tower. I don't know what they're calling it now. But 36th Street all the way down to 29th here, which is sort of like the lines of demarcation for like design districts to the north of 36th Street, south of 29th is kind of considered Wynwoody. So that in between piece, the ham of the sandwich is Midtown. And back in the day, and Peter can tell you all about this story because he lived this, but from 36 all the way down to 29th, those parcels were intended to be Midtown 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They were making so much money that they didn't even have to bother. There was none of this Aston Martin crap or any of this Marriott branded building. No. They were selling these condos regardless of what the number on the building or the name on the building was. So I lived in Midtown 2, which is the second parcel down from the top. And then they slowly developed some of them. There's like a Midtown 4, there's a Midtown 5. There's no Midtown 1. There's no Midtown 3. Midtown 3 was sold to Related, and that became the Hyde, right? And so all these parcels just kind of sort of sold off. And one large parcel here, this big slab of green grass, that was going to be a Walmart once upon a time ago. And the community really pushed back against it. And you know what? They won. They were reading notes from the Grovites, and the folks in Midtown fought the Walmart off, and that's been an empty piece of grass ever since. And what was that, like 10 years ago, Peter?
It was actually one guy, a buddy of mine called Grant Stern. He
No way.
single-handedly, yeah, no, you want to talk about a curmudgeon. He gets in there and he loves this type of stuff. And yeah, one guy fought it because they did want to put a Walmart in there. And at the time, Wynwood in Midtown, nobody really kind of knew what was what. And
nobody knew if it was cool yet, right? What is the
yeah,
Facebook?
exactly. And now it's turned into something that's just spectacular. But as a point of reference, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but when Henry Flagler, this point forward, Old Man Flagler. So when Old Man Flagler gets convinced by Julia Tuttle to bring his train from Fort Lauderdale or West Palm Beach all the way down to Miami, this ultimately ends up being where they keep it's like the storage area for all the carriages on the train. They would keep everything there. The name of the company is called FEC. So they would stock the boxes, if you will, the containers, things like that. And it had a big wall around it, if you remember back in the day. So when you drove around it, it was like this big wedge between the communities. If you go just to the west of it, you're going to have what used to be very large, and still to this day it is, a large Puerto Rican community. So you'll see all kind of references to Puerto Rico, the island, and a lot of the people from there, according to Dr. Paul George, the historian, they used to work in Wynwood. Remember, Wynwood was Doral before Doral started building all these warehouses. So, the whole area was kind of cut off. And this group, a guy out of New York and a guy locally, Michael Samuels was the local guy. They went ahead, they bought the site. They got the city and the county to basically do all the streetscapes. And they created it. They divvied it up into two sites. On the west side, the left side, they did all the retail, and that's where the Walmart was going to go. And on the other side, they did the residential. So the developers, they dumped off all the dirt on the west side to a big REIT that does retail space. On the east side, they figured they were going to do residential. They built 2 condo towers, and lo and behold, at the end of the day, they lost their ass.
They lost their
the
asses.
dirt. They lost units. And who was one of the buyers of the units? Nobody else but Jeb Bush, former governor of the state of Florida. Who bought the land? A guy called Alex Medea, the guy who sold the dirt to Related to go ahead and build what at one time was called SLS Brickell. So, yeah, no, there's a long history to this type of thing. So it's
Of
like you
course you
say.
know all the history, Peter.
Well, I'm looking for the story. I want to pop onto you about one of the developers because after they left here, oh, by the way, the developer of Midtown, he was also involved with the project right across from the what do you call it? The famous steak joint south of Fifth. What's it called? Where everybody goes to celebrate
Prime
Prime
112.
112. Yeah, right across the
Continuum?
street. There's a condo project there called like Ocean House. That guy also did that project, and during the downturn, was unloading or trying to unload units at deep discount right on the ocean in South Beach. So it's a long history.
Should have bought one of those.
Interesting.
And I bring up this in the rundown. Will Midtown and Wynwood ever connect? Because I lived there. This was 10 years ago, and we were talking about Coconut Grove last week, turning the corner. West Grove kind of coming into its own. Midtown kind of just there was nothing there, as you put it. It was a train yard largely for decades and decades and decades and decades. So is this like the actual turning point? And this, by the way, the money, the developer behind this is a few guys, but the main patron here is Carlos Rosso, formerly of Related Group. So he's no schvo. He knows what he's doing. Really, I mean, he's a tried and true Miami condo developer, right? So if he can pull this off, this is the question: if he can pull this off, and this is going to be done in phases, will this finally kind of merge Wynwood and Midtown and Design District together? Because look, as someone who lived there, you really can't traverse the whole Wynwood to Midtown to Design District on foot because it's A, not really that pretty. B, it's perilous for pedestrian traffic. So is this a good thing? Are we happy about this? Is it better than a Walmart? I think so.
Julie, I don't know if you want to take a shot at it, but I can sort of talk and then maybe you can chime in just about what you're kind of seeing. So Carlos Rosso used to run condo division for the Related Group. George Perez was the chairman. Carlos ran it. I've had plenty of interactions with Carlos. I've been on panels with him and I going back and forth and bitching and moaning. And then Related Group decided to bring up the two sons, JP and Nick, to take it over. And Carlos left and he went off on his own. He's now working on one of the projects he's doing a lot is the Standard. As you guys start to hear of the Standard expanding over, that's one of the things he's pegged to. The guy is smart as it comes. I think MIT, smart guy, knows exactly what he's doing. And he's also been there before. One of the advantages that he always has, and I don't know, depending on one of the things I remember is whenever they were going to do stuff at Related, they would buy stuff in advance. You know how everybody was front loading product because of tariffs in anticipation of President Trump?
Oh, you mean like buying like timber and all this stuff?
Like elevators. They would buy elevators. They would secure everything far in advance. And that's what ultimately gave Related, when Carlos is running it, it gave them the ability to be able to deliver and keep going when others couldn't and be able to beat people on pricing because they had everything locked up or they had secured it. So that was one of the keys. So for Carlos to get into a project like this, given his track record, and he's put up a ton of towers, a ton. If anybody can do it, he can potentially do it. The only thing I question is his timing. Is his timing right? He's the ultimate bull. And the question is his timing right? And can you justify big prices that far removed from the water? And probably the most exciting thing in Midtown is the fact you got a Target and you got a big dog park where everybody runs around. But short of that, what the hell do you really have in Midtown and Wynwood to be able to track big number pricing? So I think it's the right product. I'm not necessarily sure what the prices are, but chances are they're probably way too high, at least from my perspective.
Julia?
I think that they may be just again speculating on the activity that's happening and the high-end projects that are happening in Edgewater and the proximity to that. Could it be?
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I'm with Peter on this. I'm not a fan of Wynwood. I'm very publicly not a fan of Wynwood. Midtown isn't Wynwood. We have high rises here. You can actually see the water from some units in Midtown. But this is this is behind other towers in Midtown. So you're going to be in a high rise with no view. Again, what are the prices here? Prices 288 unit branded condo tower, 28 stories. What is the pricing here? Units at Midtown Park Residences by Proper, not to be confused with Prosper, which took me weeks to figure out, by the way. Jay Roberts Prosper, the guy, the Asian guy who's all over social media, who I've never met before. If he ever wants to be on the show, please come because I've never actually seen you in the flesh. But so Proper, Midtown at Proper, right? Starting from 700K to 2.7 million, excluding penthouses. 510 square feet to 1,700 square feet. The penthouses will average 3,100 square feet. So, I mean, $2.7 million for an 1,800 square foot unit, that's well over $1,000 a square foot in Midtown?
Mm-hmm.
I say good luck to you, sir.
Well, apply the 1% rule. What'd you say, 2.7? That means you need 27 grand a month rent.
Peter, anybody going by Peter's 1% rule hasn't been able to rent anything in years here, by the way.
We're seeing in Greater Downtown Miami, when I take people on my tours, I do them on Saturdays, I point out buildings where you can hit the 1% rule.
What building can you hit the 1% rule, Peter?
Opera Tower.
You can.
Opera, you can hit the 1% rule?
Depending on the price, yes, it's very, very, very close.
But
But
are we
a lot
talking?
of people don't want to live there because you have turnover,
Well,
you have dogs, you have. But I'm saying, but it's possible. It's actually possible. So the
but is
question
that on like a studio efficiency unit?
well, typically what's beautiful about Opera Tower is built by the developer Tibor Hollow, who's since passed. But Tibor understood
Best.
efficiency. There's no hallways. You go in these units, there's no freaking hallway. It's kind of like when you go into like a Latin American hotel. If you ever go down to Latin America, you go to some of these hotels, or you go to someplace in like India. You go in there, and when you go into the bathroom, you don't have to move, and you can do all three S's without moving your feet because everything is nice and efficient. And that's really the beauty, and that's what Opera Tower is. Opera Tower is the shape of an egg, and think of an egg that's cut almost like a pizza, and in the center you're going to have your elevator. So when you walk in, it's narrow and it kind of goes out, kind of like a I don't know, like an amphitheater or something. And the beauty of that is you were able to actually make the numbers work. So there are situations out there. The projects that I think are really challenged are the ones that are expansive. So I'm really interested to see what Carlos Rosso is going to do with his project in Midtown because this guy knows what the hell he's doing, and to see where he goes. And if there's a ton of units, I'm guessing he's going to make them little shoe boxes. Why? Because they're probably going to be efficient as they come.
$2.7 million investment grade rental product. No, dude, this is
Oh no. That's cockamamie. Who's doing that? That's not Rosso. Is that Rosso?
Units at Midtown Park Residences by Proper will range from the low 700s to $2.7 million, including Edgardo de Fortuna Fortune Development Sales is leading the sales of the project.
But it's Rosso's project. He's putting up 2.7 a door in Midtown.
Proper Hospitality is teaming with Coloroso Rosso Development and Alex Vadia's Midtown Development to launch sales of Phase 1. So it's a big JV. Everybody's got their hands in it.
Yeah, Alex threw in the dirt. Carlos is bringing the skill set, how to build it, and they're kind of putting it all together. And this way, they're probably not going to feel the pressure, so they can build in phases. They'll probably build on the shittiest site first, and as time goes by, they'll try to build up some comps, and they'll go forward and forward and forward. So listen, if they're patient, it could work. I mean, because the people know what the hell they're doing.
Proper Hospitality, though, they're from the West Coast. What the hell do they know about this?
I keep thinking of Proper Sausage. Isn't that like one of these?
No, Proper Sausage is up in Miami Shores. It's fantastic. The Portuguese water roll, best bread in town.
That's what I've heard on the infatuation.
Making me hungry.
It is exactly. Go get, and you can buy something there, and they'll cook it and put it on a sandwich. I digress. But
that's what I was thinking when you said Proper. I'm thinking of that.
No. Proper Hospitality is headed up by Brian DeLoe, co-founder and president of Santa Monica, California-based Proper. partner Brad Corzin, previously led Viceroy Hotels. So they're hospitality guys. They this is their call to fame. So they built Austin Proper Hotel and Residences in Austin, Texas, and they sold for 3,000 a square foot in Texas, Peter. So they're
Yeah,
riding
yeah,
high. They think they can take the
yeah.
world over. Good luck, boys.
Yeah, talk to Michael Shivo.
Schvo.
Shvo. Talk to Michael
It's been
Shvo
a
about that.
bad quarter for the
Like,
Michaels in development. Michael Stern not having a good
no,
quarter. Michael Schvo not having a good quarter.
Julie,
it reminds me of the, yeah,
if I can ask you,
reminds
I
me
mean,
just, yeah, go ahead. Go
there's
ahead.
a bunch of sites that are very similar to this, like Midtown. It makes me think of Gulfstream because you're right there. Your office is in Hallandale. Right down the street is Gulfstream. Gulfstream is the racetrack,
Mhm.
and they had the track, and then they were going to actually try to build condos. And then is it still the Stronach family, the Canadian family that owns the racetrack?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So
not,
basically,
I
old man
don't know. I
Stronach.
don't know the fact.
Yeah, Old Man Stronach, who was the owner, I'm not sure if he's still around or not, but Old Man Stronach wanted to build up condos, so they actually had a condo project there, and they
Hmm.
were going forward. I think Severo was the listing agent at the time. They sold out all these units, and then basically Old Man Stronach freaked
We
out, and
have
they
one
gave
of the
her,
tours with you.
yeah, and they
We had
gave
one of
back
the
the
tours
money.
with you.
Yeah, all the buyers of that project. So it's just like two different perspectives. But if I were going to compare Midtown, I compare it to like what you have in Gulfstream because it's a very similar because you're right there on the brink of Aventura and you have Hallandale. You got plenty of dirt. You got the retail component. It's very similar in my mind. Similar types of projects.
Right.
So is
It's
there
not
anything you can talk about?
Edgewater.
Yeah.
Well, I think the proximity of, I still think that having all this luxury project such as Aston Martin and downtown and the design district being developing as quickly as and vastly as it had, and the projects that are going up in Edgewater, it's just smacked right, in the middle of that. So, maybe they're just being bullish and betting on that,
But Julia, have you seen anything with the project in Gulfstream? And just up the street, you got Sofer. The Sofers, they own the dog track.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called? Mardi Gras now. So you got two communities
Mm-hmm.
that basically are kind of like what we have there in
Right.
Midtown. I know they're putting up some residential at the dog track, former dog track called Mardi Gras Casino. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just wondering. I mean, can you compare and contrast maybe what the vibe is, what the interest level is in and around your office over there versus what these guys are trying to do in Midtown?
Who's this Mexican developer that just put up the medical building? I mean I forgot the name of it. All the plazas that are where the big Easy Casino was. I think it's a Mexican developer that was you know took over that land. They're in completing phase 3 right now, but you still have parcels with mobile homes that are probably going to be taken down. A lot of 55 plus communities that are going a little bit west, and we are seeing the prices east of Hollandale, just between Pembroke Road and Hollandale, outrageously expensive on the older homes that are just don't represent any value right now except for the price of it, right? So people are holding on to that, just to see how the area redevelops. But west of US1, you have a lot of, still a lot of parcels with mobile homes and 55 plus co-ops, right? So
Co-ops.
what's going to be, yeah, there are a lot of co-ops in Hollandale, both down the 14th Street from Hollandale to Atlantic Shores, and also west of, right across from Gulfstream Casino, right? There's a whole development on Southeast Third Street there.
So to wrap up the topic, and I'm going to point to Julia to buy, sell, hold on it, but I just want to confirm what Peter was asking. So, are you trying to compare Midtown to what's going on up in Gulfstream?
Yes.
I don't know much at all outside of what you folks have told me about Gulfstream, but it seems like Midtown is a little further along already.
Oh no,
Um,
it is, but Gulfstream had the advantage. They both got out of the
Mhm.
chute about the same time. This Canadian group came in. They took
Mm.
over Gulfstream. They rebuilt the entire facility. They effectively brought in a cocoa walk, if you will. Then they built it out, and then their strategy was to roll out in these massive parking garages, roll out all these condo towers. So they went forward one tower. So it was a very similar type of path, but ultimately Midtown has progressed, but yet Gulfstream has sort of been stuck in the mud.
That's interesting because I mean Aventura has exploded out of the seams. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
It hasn't carried over.
maybe it's because there's so many players in Midtown competing against one another instead of one just like cohesive developer. Like, you know, Swire built out Brickell Key and either they were going to do it or they weren't going to do it. Here in Midtown, there's been a lot of players. I mean, Related was here, Rosso's here. The guys you mentioned from 10 or 15 years ago were here. You have no, and you have anchored retail here. You have a Lowe's, you have a Target. You got a Dick's Sporting Goods. They got to be a great tenant. Nordstrom Rack. You have real institutional tenants here that aren't just going to go out of business and blow up the neighborhood. And 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 I'm pretty sure all of these buildings are Airbnb friendly because anytime I drive through there, it looks like I'm driving through like a tourist landia. It's my hell on earth, honestly. So Julia, are you buy, sell, hold? Will Midtown and Wynwood ever connect? The question is, are you a buy on this Rosso and Co project, or you think their timing's off and they're way too bullish?
My gut feeling says buy from everything that I'm seeing,
Ooh,
you know.
Julia's a
Mm.
buy. Are you sure you're friends with Peter?
I don't know. We have to see now. Peter?
So I don't know if you remember, I referenced it. I said there was something I wanted to tell you about the developer of Midtown, but I wanted to look it up first. And this is coming from the Miami New Times. So once Midtown ownership, a lot of them got kind of pushed aside because the market went sideways. The dirt was sold to Alex Medea. Then the condos were sold off to Jeb Bush and another guy called Ronald Krongold. They're the ones who bought all the condo units in bulk. So then the developer, this Michael Samuels, he was the local guy. He went out to New Orleans, and this is according to the Miami New Times, and I'll just leave it at what it is, and I don't know what happened afterwards. But the New Times headline says Midtown Miami developer accused of bribing ex-New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin. And the story goes on to say something to the fact that there was a federal indictment against the mayor of New Orleans, the one, if you all remember, Hurricane Katrina. That gentleman got indicted, Ray Nagin, former mayor of the Big Easy, who rose to national prominence in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Just to sort of put that out there because it's part of the whole folklore of Midtown and Miami and developers and all that type of stuff. Now, going back to this project, and by the way, anybody can find that story in the Miami New Times. You just do a clip search. So, but going back to this project, there's three ways, and we were talking about Gulfstream, which is the horse track. There's three ways to basically buy pre-construction. I would argue one is you buy it because it looks beautiful, like when you go to horse track. Oh, look at a beautiful horse. Another way is you got a lucky number. Oh, this is my lucky number, and I just feel the right feeling. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buy it. The third way is you buy based off the jockey. Can the jockey get the horse over the finish line? I would argue because Carlos Rosso is involved, and I'm a big fan of his intelligence. I don't necessarily, he and I go back and forth, but because he's involved and the skill set, and because Vidia is still involved with the dirt side, I'd be a buy. I'd be a pound the table buy because these guys have gone through it before. They have battle scars.
No.
Yeah. They
He's
have
still
battle
my
scars.
friend.
Yeah, well, I'm saying they have battle scars. If it was anybody else, I would say thumbs down, sell. But this pound the table buy because of the skill set, and I'm betting the jockey. I'm not betting the horse, and I'm not betting the number simply because of you, Carlos. And if I see you, Carlos, you owe me another drink. Last time I saw you, you chinched out on me.
I can't believe I'm actually selling this. I cannot believe I'm the only person selling this. The prices are absurd, guys. 700 grand, and you know that $700,000 is going to be like a 500 square foot efficiency if it's even that big.
But they're smart enough to know when to adjust. See, that's the thing. Because they got battle scars, they will make decisions. I'm betting that will allow them to get over the finish line, or they'll slow walk the construction to try to let the market catch up to kind of where they have to be. That's what an experienced developer will do rather than somebody who just parachuted in and they think they know everything.
Perhaps, but from with the data and the facts that we have today, I cannot buy that for the life of me. Moving
I
along,
would,
moving along,
I'd be
moving.
selling too if it wasn't the
I'm
jockey.
I'm I'm selling. I do like the jockey analogy. I like Carlos Rosso. He's a smart guy. I can't discount that. But with what I know, which I might be misinformed. I might be reading fake news. Who knows? But from what I'm reading, what's available to me, Daniel Hernandez, today on October 17th, I'm a hard sell on it. South Florida homeowners going bust. Now, Peter, you sent me an article from South Florida Business Journal about an outfit, home builder Onyx Homes, I don't know how to pronounce it. That's not how you spell Onyx, guys. There's a Y in there, but it's fine. They're from Texas. Actually, I don't know where they're from, but they expanded to
Another
Texas.
Texas company.
Yep.
No, I think they are from here, but they were expanding to Texas.
Expanded.
So they're laying off 137 workers, and why is this a big deal? Because we're fans of jobs down here in South Florida because a good one is hard to find, and so when you lay off 137 people and you're a company, it's big news, especially if that company is in the one thing we do here, which is build houses. So if you're laying off 137 people in your company and you're based here, that's indicative of something. So Onyx Homes builds prefab homes. So don't think of it like a mobile home. Think of it like they build the parts off-site and then they bring everything in, and so they can assemble it like in a jiffy. And a lot of different home builders do this. But Onyx was kind of like at the forefront of all the technology with it, and they would post things on Instagram and YouTube videos, and it was actually quite amazing how they were able to build these houses. But when you peel back the onion on this story, they're not the only people having trouble. So I go to click on that article, and then on the headline, breaking news: Signature Builders Group, luxury home builder from South Florida, files for Chapter 7 liquidation a couple days ago. And this isn't just somebody who created a fake company yesterday. These guys have been around since 2005. So I click on that article, and lo and behold, Zion Homes, another home builder, I think they're just about as old, 2000, let's see, they've been around since the early 2000s as well. Oh, and yet again, Steel Homes Modular filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy on October 8th, 2025. And they've also been around since the early 2000s. So these aren't, A, out-of-towners trying to come in here and just make a quick buck. And B, these are guys who kind of know what they're doing. And they're all, by the way, they're all doing the same thing. They all build single-family homes, like the Lennars and the Ryan Homes, but these are just smaller operations. But they're going out of business, and that's troubling for many reasons. A, because we need people to build more homes here, and B, when any business, regardless of what their vertical is, goes out of business, that's typically a bad sign. So Peter, I know you don't look at single family homes a lot, but you're the one who sent me this story. So what is your feeling on this? Is this just a few companies who bit off more than they can chew when money was cheap, and now they're not able to pay the piper, or is this something bigger?
So the reason I saw this story is we're at the end of October. When we end October, in my mind, we're at the end of the summer, and November begins the winter buying season. So I'm putting together my base case for the winter. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm looking at interest rates. I'm looking at a whole variety of things. And what I will tell you, as you start to nose around, Daniel, just like you went through the story and you started to see multiple headlines, what you're starting to notice is there's all kind of smoke rising in a variety of different places. So the question is, are we going to have a full-fledged California wildfire? Or we got something a little bit different, and that's kind of the moment where we're at. So what it says to me is potentially this is a repercussion. Could be a variety of different reasons. There was nothing that was posted in the article that I sent to you, and the reason there was nothing posted is it was based off a warn notice. In the state of Florida, if you lay off so many people, you got to let the state know, and they make it available to the public. The journalists got it and they wrote about it, but there was no explanation as to why they were doing it. But generally speaking, when you start to see movement in an industry, it can be a very insightful tell as to what's coming down the pipe. If housing is in such great demand, remember, we don't have enough housing, you got to build more, blah, blah, blah.
Right,
How
right,
the
right.
hell how the hell do you have a company that basically is targeting that affordable? I'm saying affordable, not like a government program, but like something I can actually buy. It's a cheap way or around it to go ahead and
Right,
build
a
a house.
$400,000 to $700,000 home.
Yeah. So how does that go out of business? And then potentially, is it because of tariffs? Is it because of Liberation Day tariffs? Because products getting imported? So there's so many different layers to this. But generally speaking, when you see layoffs in or you see closure in the real estate world, and our economy is based on three-legged stool. You got tourism, you got trade, and you got real estate. We all know what's going on with tourism. Numbers are expected to be down. We also have a chilling effect related to the immigration policy. Trade, we got tariffs and everybody's onshoring. The idea of the current administration is to bring everything back. Therefore, what the hell do you need ports for? Because you're going to build it all here. And then the third one's real estate. So these are some of the issues, the cross currents that we're all being forced to deal with. But Julia, you're in Hollywood Hellendale. You're dealing with a bunch of Canadians. The Canadians were outspoken last year about how they felt disrespected,
Right, right, right.
about how we burn our cash, we come
Mm-hmm.
down 6 months a year, we're burning cash, we're eating Montreal smoked meat, we're going to poutine, we're doing all that type of stuff. What happens if they don't show up? What happens if they don't show up? What is that going to be for the market? And these are the tells you have to anticipate, at least from my perspective. And this to me was a tell.
Peter, I hate to break it to
Mm-hmm.
you, but that wasn't last year. It's only been like 9 months, dude.
Ah, okay. Last buying season, the
Liberation
winter
Day
buying
was
season.
April 1st, and that's not an April Fool's joke. That was like yesterday, man.
Dude, that feels like a
Yeah.
year ago.
Right.
So yeah,
Well,
Julia, you were
yeah.
talking to us before we got on the show about the Canadians. What's the news coming out from our neighbors up north?
Hey,
Well, hey.
What
Listen,
about that?
what I've been noticing on the market, at least here in our area, is their snowbirds. They love Florida. They spend their winters here. And yeah, maybe they're unhappy politically, economically, they can't afford it. They got very scared. And now when they're looking at all the factors and they are understanding that reserves are necessary in order, their price points normally, generally, they're much lower than there's a segment of wealthy, affluent Canadians, obviously, right? And it's a different segment. But majority of the Canadians that come here as snowbirds are on a lower price points that are actually getting into those co-ops, unrentable lands, and so they had to kind of take a deep breath and say, okay, so what am I going to do when it's that cold in Canada? Where am I going to go? And I know a bunch of them that contemplated going to Caribbean and maybe going on vacation to Panama or some other Latin American countries. And ultimately, all of my clients are coming back. All of them pulled their condos, majority of them, not all of them, obviously. There are different reasons and different financial situations for people who cannot. They're just carrying costs for the properties became much higher than it used to be, right? But at the same time, they love Florida. Maybe they'll, that small percentage that did end up selling, they'll be coming back and renting because the rents are so affordable right now, or much more affordable, at least for the next couple of years in the winter than they used to be.
But but
So,
but but Julia, the question I have is if they're Canadians came down and they're looking for value, so they've tended to, at
mhm,
least from what I've seen, they bought into some of these vintage buildings which are facing increased maintenance fees, they're facing special assessments, they
mhm,
got insurance. I just took a look to see what the currency is. If I come in with a Canadian loonie, not the bird but the dollar, their dollar, I bring in a loonie, they're giving me 71 cents American, 71 cents US. And if I've had an increase, not only at tariffs at the grocery store, but if I also have an increase on my maintenance fees and stuff like that, at what point does it not become cost effective to come down here and burn cash if suddenly our prices are so much more expensive than you would find in sort of Canada or even the Caribbean? Have any of them talked about that, about how the currency combined with our tariffs and our excess costs right now for product is that cramping their style where they can go spend money elsewhere and get much better value? Because they are value oriented like me.
Well, what's the biggest state for Canadians in the U.S.? Is it Florida or Arizona?
I'm
My
not sure
experience
of
has
the
been
numbers. I don't
where
know.
where they come from. So for me, the guys who come down from the oil fields and stuff in
Like
Western Canada,
Calgary.
they go,
Yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
Calgary down
they
here.
go to they go to Arizona. And like Toronto is the cutoff, whether or not you're going to go to Miami, South Florida, or whether or
Ah,
not you're going to go.
got it,
Yeah,
got
yeah,
it,
yeah,
got it, got it,
yeah.
got it, got
That's
it.
been my experience with it.
Yeah. Interestingly, because my, 5 of my sales during the summer were all by Canadians between the co-ops, the condos. So I am seeing a surge of the Canadian buyers who have missed the opportunity in the previous cycle. And they're looking for deals. And just because it's a buyer's market here in Hollandale, that's what I'm seeing. So it's something that we have to really watch. But again, I think that, you know, human nature is we adjust, the security, the stability, and the benefits that the Florida market offers them, the golfing, the climate, all of that ultimately will have an impact on whether or not they're going to be coming back. So far what I'm seeing is they pulled their condos off market and they're coming back, at least for this season. So it will be interesting to see what happens next season. And what happens January through March when their snowbird, cycle is coming to an end, right?
You
Then they
said
list
some,
them, right?
yeah, but you know what? She just said something interesting, and it made me think. Peter, the numbers came out, and we had so many canceled listings, like across the country. There were tens of thousands of them. Even down here in Miami, it was
Mm-hmm.
crazy numbers. Do you think? And this is Daniel with his speculation hat on, conspiracy theorist even, I'd
Nice.
say. But do you think some people put their houses on the market like, oh, I'm rich, I'm gonna piss off to wherever, and I don't know, I gotta get out of here, and then they didn't get the lofty number that they wanted, and then they're like, wait a minute, like I'm adaptable, as Julia would say. I'm adaptable. Like, is this really as bad? Like, is this really, am I really going to uproot my life and sell my home that I've lived in for 12 years because this? Did I maybe freak out a little bit? Am I being perhaps a drama queen? And they just said, no, like, this is silly. And they pulled their house off the market. Do you think there's even like a tidbit of that?
Well, what we basically have seen since Labor Day is you're starting to see the listings go back up. Suddenly, South Florida wide, Tri-County wide,
Well,
they're
I mean,
ticking back up.
tis the season, no?
Yeah, yeah, tis the season exactly. So I have no way to
Yeah,
read it. I
yeah,
just know what I've heard, and like I've heard on the radio, WLRN, the local NPR affiliate, that's no longer funded by the federal government. So they've done some stories and they've interviewed Canadians who came down here regularly, and many of them were, they were adamant they weren't coming back. They were dumping and they were leaving,
Yeah,
and
and then they
just
went
all of the
back to
above.
Calgary or Toronto in February and they said, oh, God, it's really fucking cold here. I know Julie and I can
exactly,
curse.
exactly.
So
Um,
Listen,
this is
guys,
a tell
I,
then this
I think
winter.
it's aspirational. Listen, Peter, I'll give you a very, it's a very simple example, right? I had a listing appointment this morning. I signed, for the sale of a 2-bedroom condo on Ocean Drive. And when I pulled up, I usually like to pull the you know, comps right in front of the seller when I'm sitting in front of them. But more importantly is not what have sold, but how we're going to position and at what price we're going to list it at to be, to have an attractive pricing to get showings and ultimately sell, right? There are 20 in that particular subdivision. There are 2 buildings. There are 20 listings, and none of them could compete with my client's listing at price points are around 300,000, right? Just because of the aspirational pricing, and because Canadians typically would, it depends on when they purchased, of course, but it's not, there's no fire sales, right? And so they overprice their condos, they sit on the market, maybe they've changed agents, and you know it's just, that's what I'm noticing more than anything, right? Aspirational pricing, and they sit in the market and they don't sell.
David,
And so if they have to absolutely need it, yeah.
so Julia, David De Leon, who works with Daniel over at Compass, he said last week that
Hmm.
he's telling clients or people who are thinking the listing, if they want to get out, he's telling them to go 15% below market. in terms of pricing. What would you say to that? Is that what you're telling your clients and your customers? Is 15% the new 10%?
If they're real sellers,
For
right?
the you're just saying go 15% to sell, depending
Yeah,
on the
list
timing
it
and depending on the circumstance, listed at 15% below.
in order to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So if somebody actually is in the market because the number of transactions has been relatively stagnant, if what I've been saying is be bold. You want to get out, be bold. So you separate yourself. Last week he said during the podcast, he said about 15% is what he's recommending those people who need to get out in terms of they want to be out the door. Not that they're dumping, but they want to be done with it. 15%. What
The
would you say to that?
Again, the problem that I am seeing is even if you're going to position and price 15% or 10% below market, you're not going to get offers at that price. You're going to get offers 20 to 25% because buyers are looking for deals, right? So this
So
is my
15
advice
is
to
not
the
enough.
buyers. Go. It's not enough. And are you going to have multiple offers at the price where you're going to position it at? Are you going to, can you speculate that you're going to generate, multiple offers no matter what price you're going to list it at? And I'm not seeing this happening in the condo market because of the expenses, because of the carrying costs, because of the rental restrictions. Majority of them have issues that land leases, you cannot rent year one, year two, right? But the problem is that, I was discussing it with my sellers this morning, right? They're ready to sell it at 300, you know because they have to position it properly based on everything else that is being listed right now. They can safely do that at 320, 315, and see what the activity will be, because it is, the view and the floor height all is playing to their advantage. And they will most likely sell somewhere around 300, right?
But
But
would that be the lowest price unit in that line?
it is not going to be the lowest price unit that have sold, right? Not
No,
not
no,
the
but active
the
competing in that
listed.
line right now.
Absolutely,
There you
absolutely.
go.
But that's not the point. You can't play on the price anymore. So if somebody else is going to start being lower than you, right? They wanted to list it at 325. There's another unit on a higher floor, not as renovated, that was listed at 324 900, just below 325, which is never my strategy to begin with. So you don't want to miss the buyers that are looking for 325 to 350 ranges, right? But besides the point, you can't play the price game, right? It's just the dynamic of the market. It's not just the price. There's so many other factors that are playing into it, and I think that we have to look at that complexity when we position the properties, right? It's just
So we jumped into the next topic without buy, selling, or holding South Florida home builders going bust. Julia, you're the guest. You got to go first. What is this?
putting me on the
Is
spot
this?
here.
Are we buying? Are we buying this? Are we selling it? Are we holding and hoping for the best?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm still. I think that I need more information in order to understand what is happening to those builders, and is there a competition from Lennar and Pulte and some other bigger developers, land contractors? I don't know. It's a tough one.
Sounds like she's a hold. Peter,
Oh, I'm a buy. It's a tell. It's a tell. Buy.
I too am a buy. That's ominous. Very, very ominous when we see industry like that dropping off. Especially that they're established companies. These aren't guys who came in 2022 or 2020 when money was free. These are guys who lived through the recession. They lived through a little mini recession. I wouldn't call it a mini recession, but hey, and they lived through COVID. They lived through COVID, PPP loan fraud and all, and now is when they're gonna go bust. Yeah, I'm gonna buy on that too, Peter. So jumping right back into you, Julia, we were talking about Sunny Isles, or we're talking about your practice. But I put this topic here for you and for us
Hmm.
because Peter does condos. He does all the condos. I'm just here for a good time. And you, Julia, you're on the ground in Sunny Isles. I don't do any business there at all. Peter doesn't like to drive, so I know public transit would take him like 7 hours to get up there. So tell us about what's going on in Sunny Isles. We know that they don't have the crazy price points like the Aston Martin, or the Aston Martin did have crazy price points. That's gone down. Porsche design was very famously put out in that David Siddons report about a month ago as one of the worst performing buildings in the county for resales. I think Porsche design's down to something like $12.50 a square foot. So we're getting a lot of input from a lot of different places, but we want to hear it from the horse's mouth. We want to hear it from you. Not calling you a horse, that's awful. But we want to hear the report, the Radiant Realty report from Sunny Isles. Julia, tell us about it.
Yes, I don't do strangely enough sales in Sunny Isles because I'm mainly in Hollandale and Hollywood. So I don't want to position myself as an authority of the Sunny Isles market, current situation. I do know that the number of inventory has significantly increased, and the days in the market in Sunny Isles, comparable to Hollandale and Hollywood, is almost 30% higher. I think it's up to 184 days right now. I don't see the prices slashing and going down in generally, but the condos are definitely sitting on the market longer. It is much cheaper to rent right now than to own one with the current assessments and the current carrying cost. So it's, it is a very interesting situation there.
So 184 days, that's more or less 6 months. So these are people who listed it prime for buying season last April, March. They listed it too high. They kept it on the market in the summer. And, this is now 6 months later, and you haven't seen prices come down. That seems like either A, people don't need to sell, or B, they don't want to admit that they're getting bad advice, or a combination of both.
Maybe. I think it's a combination of both. And again, I'll go back to the same comment, aspirational pricing. We're lucky that a lot of homeowners have equity, and we're not seeing increased numbers of foreclosures and short sales and a spike of that, right? Because of the timing when they purchased and the appreciation we've experienced in 21 and 22, right? But the increased inventory, I don't think people are realizing that we are going through a cycle. And those that are realizing that, they're pulling their condos off market, considering to rent them, even though if they're holding a mortgage, they're definitely not covering their expenses at this time at all. They have to, come out of pocket, and significantly more than some of them may afford, right? It's just Sunny Isles is a higher end market generally, unless you go on the bay and all of those buildings and the Winston Towers, Arlen House. But the older buildings are definitely are becoming less and less affordable because of the carrying costs, special assessments, increased insurance costs, and I think that's a big element in the vintage condos, because in some budgets that I was reviewing, and this year I think it will be slightly different, but last year and the year before that, the insurance cost for most of the condos was close to 50% of their total budget. And I think that's where the special assessments are coming in, and they're fixing the buildings in order to bring their maintenance down and the insurance costs down, so they can go on for another 20, 25 years. But I think Peter was discussing that, what is the lifespan of a building, on the vintage building, right? That's what I'm wondering, where are we going to end up in 20 years from now, right? 10 years from now, if the building is
Well,
already 50 years
Julia,
old, right?
yeah, to your point, like I said, Hong Kong, parts of Asia, they have a 60-year shelf life, effectively, just to give you context. But the other thing that I sort of find interesting, and based on what you're saying, is we have this index we track. We're tracking what's available, what's going pending, and overall in South Florida, it's coming in about 7.5 points. That's think about the Dow Jones or something. You have an index. All of that
Hmm.
area, whether it be Sunny Isles, it'd be Aventura, it'd be Hollywood, Hallandale, they're all coming in the fours. So there's something going on right there. And if anybody doesn't know the geography, you got Miami-Dade County, you got Broward County, you got Fort Lauderdale would be the northern point, Miami would be the southern point, and right in between you have these four communities: the Barrier Island and Sunny Isles Beach. Above that is going to be Hallandale Beach and Hollywood Beach. Then on the mainland you
Hmm.
have Hollywood, Hallandale, and you have Aventura. So it's a nice little general community. Widespread. It doesn't matter if it's Sunny Isles or anything. They're all struggling. But what's happened recently, Julia, and I think you were telling me about some of this, but that it's bearing out in the numbers. All of a sudden, you're seeing the market strengthen because of transactions. It looks like it's just caught fire in the last month or two. Is that something you've seen?
Well, the activity has definitely increased. I think the decline that I have seen, and in some buildings, the prices have certainly, dropped significantly, in some 20, 30%, right? But again, these are either troubled buildings that have misbudgeted their special assessments or the work that is anticipated in the next year or two. They possibly did not budget for any reserves that are mandatory by the end of this year, right? And I think all of that played in the general sentiment. But I think that it just everything was on hold from somewhere July, August of last year to about mid-May of this year when the market started picking up. And it had to do with many factors. And I don't think that the interest rates in the condo market have anything to or have a major impact on the sales activity.
Is there capitulation? Is that why the index that we're tracking, why it's suddenly surging? Is that because people are capitulating and cutting bait on their pricing, and suddenly you're getting people off their couches saying, "Oh, wow, this is a good price. Let me get off my couch and let me go take a run at it." Is that what you've seen over the course of the summer? Because we noticed something noticeable between basically July and September, statistically.
Um, Statistically, July and September, possibly, yes. I would say, you know, historically, and I've been in real estate for 15 years, July and August have always been the slowest month for me. We had over 10 sales. So, yeah, I would agree to it personally. What have caused it? I think the price points or the deals that you can make and, negotiate a better pricing is what has influenced buyers to move forward, right?
The sell-off. In other words, a sell-off. The sell-off's begun.
Well, I think there's something else to be said about these special assessments finally coming to light and being built into the budgets that now I know I have a $50,000 assessment that's being disclosed, it's being marketed and advertised, and I'm telling my agent to put it
Yeah.
in broker remarks. Seller's paying, daddy's paying, we'll take it off. Don't worry about it. Yeah, the pool's going to be closed for a year, but guess what? Once this is done, you're going to have practically a new building, right? And I
Right.
think we're coming out of the sort of the nadir of that, the valley. We're coming out of that, as my mechanic likes to tell me about my
Hmm.
15-year-old Beamer that I can't seem to not to awful. But
Yeah.
we're coming out of that valley, and sellers are paying the assessments. The work is being scheduled, or at least somebody's putting a deposit down for a contractor to work on this, and buyers are like, hey, like, yeah, this might be a 35-year-old building, but it's got a brand new pool, brand new gym. They put in a cold plunge, paddle court. Hey, um, so I think there was a lot of fear. Um, but ultimately, what'd you say, Peter? What's the discount on a vintage condo today versus new construction? It's
Oh,
like
I want it's
over
at least
30%.
50%. Yeah, it's
For
at least
50%.
50%.
Oh,
Yeah, but you go to yeah.
recent resales were like 25, 30%.
Mm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, recent resales about down about 18%.
Down
Overall
about
market down
18%.
about 33%. But it's interesting though, that area, because when I see these changes, the only thing I can think of is, okay, people are starting to cut bait. they're capitulating, they're trying to get out,
Hmm.
and that's why suddenly you see this surge in the activity. So it's interesting, Julia, that you've been experiencing sort of what the data is showing, and I'm sure the closed sales numbers are
Yeah.
going to come out and they're going to
Well, I
reflect
mean,
this.
if Julia's having 10 transactions in the slowest months of her history,
Am I?
uh, yeah, July, August, and by the way, I don't think that's an anomaly. That's for everybody, right? So if you're seeing that sort of transaction volume, that you know that makes me pretty cheery about the next few months, especially going into Q1 of next year. Um,
Yeah.
and let's see what happens with Jerry. That's Old Man Powell for Peter, and that's Jerome Powell for you, Julia. Uh, we have too many nicknames for all these people.
You do. You definitely do. Yeah.
So
But you don't think that the interest rates have anything to do with it? I tend to agree with you because the buyers I talk to, it's just like this is the reality, and it's been like this for several years now. It's not like
Well, listen, ever since the market started stabilizing, and I would say maybe, beginning of 23 or the end of 2022, it has been a need-based market, right? Whoever needs to sell, they'll sell, and whoever needs to buy, they'll buy. And if it's an estate sale, they just have no interest of holding on to it because the expenses are eating them up. So you will start seeing more and more of that. But also, I think, Peter, the just because everything is so expensive in downtown Edgewater, Midtown, and those crazy prices that we were talking about, this new project and Wynwood, right? What is the most affordable area? Fort Lauderdale's experiencing this huge growth as well, and a lot of new development, and it's very congested, right? So people are looking for something in the middle, and I think that has something to do with that. That also creates an impact, right? And maybe the future outlook of where and how this area will be developing. And I'm very excited about what all the changes the Hollandale itself is going through. I have not seen anything like that in the last 14 years. So it is exciting. It is exciting because you still have a lot of affordable um, um, housing, not affordable housing in the way of affordable housing, but a lot of deals that you can still get. As an investor, I still don't see that the numbers. Doesn't matter how inexpensive you purchase this unit, I still don't see how the rental numbers can make sense, at least east of US 1. And I've run the numbers up and down on many different types of properties, right? I'm just not seeing the numbers, right? As an investment opportunity. Not yet. But again, it all comes down to, you know, rental restrictions. Will the buildings, you know, change the rules and regulations to allow people to rent to be able to continue affording this special assessments and higher maintenance fees? And, will the number at the end of the day make sense? But it's always been owning anything on South Ocean Drive, you could hardly get 3% at any given time from my experience of, you know, it's just, it was always very attractive to people who wanted to have a second home, offset their carrying costs, and enjoy Florida, right? It's a lifestyle. And
it's a
I think
lifestyle.
it's, right?
Yeah. No, I think that sums up everything we've talked about today. We will survive all of this because it's a lifestyle. We live at a latitude where it doesn't snow. I mean, to put it as basic as anything. In a few months, you're going to turn on your weather app on your phone and you'll see all the purple and the blue and all of these hues of blue where it's snowing in the rest of the planet or the rest of this northern hemisphere. And then you're going to have the little tip of South Florida where it's all red and sunny and it's not even that hot. It's going to be like 75 degrees Fahrenheit and it's going to be gorgeous. And then people are going to come in here for our Basel and they're going to realize how much they love it again. And it's a cycle, right?
I don't want to piss on everybody's parade, but
Piss on it, Peter.
in
Just
order to get these deals done, you got to capitulate. And some of these people who are capitulating they pay too much. They simply pay too much on the way in. Julia, maybe not your people, but some who flock down here when you can
There
twerk
are
a police
people
car.
who the police car twerkers, they overpaid for shit.
So they're taking a haircut. So it's if you're on the
Sure.
buy side,
Sure.
I think this is tremendous. If you're on the sell side, like we've been saying, be bold, cut your price. You're not gonna get more tomorrow than you're getting today, at least in my humble opinion. Now maybe
I
once we get
agree.
through the process, but you're gonna have to endure, like say maybe you stay in one of these buildings that's going through all the renovation. It takes 2 to 3 years. And what I experienced in terms of going through construction and stuff like that, you always got pigeons everywhere. And if you have a car, you're going to get a flat tire because all the construction workers drop nails. So there's always dust. You go on your balcony,
The
there's
pigeons.
dust,
People
dust.
don't talk about the pigeons. The pigeons are rats with wings.
Yeah, exactly. But there's all these issues that always sort of come up, and also too, since I'm pissing on everybody's parade, let me just remind you now, because of the inspection requirement as a result of the Surfside condo collapse, every 10 years you're getting a special assessment. So that special assessment you just got, you're getting another one in 10 years. It's inevitable. It's part of the hustle. It's like a government body. Once they get money, they got to burn the cash so they can get more the next year. So just look into that. Every 10 years you're getting a special assessment is what I would venture to guess
Well,
personally.
we're going to have to fuel the economy somehow if it's not going to be with property taxes, Peter. And with that, Julia, oh wait, I don't want to cut you off. You sound like you want to say something. I'm going to make it buy, sell, hold on Sunny Isles and Hallandale. That's my bad.
I would definitely buy right now. I will
Buy.
buy.
You got the cash. You heard it from the source, guys. You heard it.
I will
Buy. You can still
buy.
achieve Peter's 1% rule up there. Can you?
That's gonna be tough, but
That's
you know,
gonna
you
be
gotta
tough.
search for those buildings. Yeah.
But they do exist. Non-zero chance that they exist. So Julia's a buy. She's bullish. Peter.
No, I am bulling up. I am on the buy side. I'm extremely bullish. On the sell side, I think there's going to be a lot of people walking around with me with no hair because they're taking serious haircuts to go forward. So buy, I'm a hard buy, pound the table. On the sell side, I give you my condolences. It's not going to be pretty going forward.
And that's the show, folks. We're a lot of green on the table today, except for a few holds by Julia. But I'm sure when she comes back, she's gonna start yelling at us a bit more. I feel like she was being nice to us today. But everybody, thank you for sticking with us. I hope there was traffic on the road because we stayed online for an hour and a half. But hope you learned a lot. I certainly did. Thank you, Julia Ray from Radiant Realty, for joining us on this Friday afternoon. Thank you, Peter Zalewski, my friend, my co-host, my Flanagan's lunch buddy. Hey, did Ken Griffin's people call you about lunch? Because I haven't gotten anything.
No, I don't check emails. Ken, if you want me to come out there and we can talk about what's going on in the real estate market, Daniel and I, we prefer text or WhatsApp. I don't read email.
Oh, you're a big WhatsApp guy. You wouldn't think it, but he's a big WhatsApp guy. All right, everybody.
What does that mean?
Well, no, because like you're a white dude. White dudes don't like WhatsApp. I was so blown away. All right, we'll talk about this offline. But everybody, we'll see you next Friday at 4 p.m. This is Buy, Sell, Hold Miami. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.